Miniature Market has thousands of board games at discounted prices. Click the direct link below to see all of those discounted games. Hello my friends, the Game Boy Geek here. Back in 1998, Richard Garfield designed Pecking Order. It's a two-player game, it's a lot of fun. Well, last year, it got reprinted as Monsters. It was called Monstrolious by Repos Production. And I recently bought it, and last week I just did a review of the game and a little bit of comparison. And Richard Garfield had done a designer diary. Now, Richard Garfield, if you don't know, if there was ever a Mount Rushmore of game designers, he'd be on it, right? Like Magic the Gathering, King of Tokyo. He has done so much. Mindbug. He's even done party games with like Ken Jennings, the biggest winner and one of the biggest winners in Jeopardy history. To be able to do party games and then do some of these very strategic card games is quite a different thing there. But he did a designer diary, which I thought was really interesting of some of the inspiration for the game, but then, what made it different. But then I also thought it'd be kind of fun to talk to Richard. I hadn't talked to him since Keyforge came out in a public setting like this, and kind of interview him about reprints and revitalizing old games. And what do you do? What don't you do? How does that work with the publishers? What are you thinking? Do you have any that are going to be coming out soon? What types of things are you thinking for when you're re-implementing a new game? How much of it is on the publisher's plate? How much of it is on your plate? And what do you think about when you revitalize a game? So we're going to talk to him about this today. I'm going to bring him some trends that have been going on in the industry of different games that did good things and bad things with reprints, and how he thinks about it. So that's going to be really interesting. So it's going to be a great treat. So here we go. All right, everyone, the man who needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyway. The man that brought us Magic the Gathering, King of Tokyo, and a million other games that are amazing that a lot of people should play, like Mindbug was my card game of the year, and some treasures of Treasure Hunter. It's one of the older games. Some other games maybe many people don't know about yet. Spynet, another great card game that he's done. And he doesn't just do strategy games, he does party games too. He's done Hive Mind. He's done Half Truth, which he co-designed with the Jeopardy star Ken Jennings. Everybody, please help me welcome in the one, the only. If there was a Mount Rushmore of game designers, he'd be on it, Mr. Richard Garfield.
Hi, it's great to be here. Always love talking about games.
Fantastic. So I already let everybody know, that about Pecking Order, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. I love the game so much that I got my cousin to like it, but unfortunately it was out of print, and so I helped him find like a used copy many years ago on eBay, and I just love Pecking Order. It's a game that was back in the 1998, I believe, is when it came out. And I recently read your designer diary, and it really started sparking some interest and some questions, and just, you and I have talked publicly a few times. We've talked many times offline on different things. And I thought it'd be great to bring you back on to talk about this and revitalizing an old game and making it new again, and seeing what your thoughts are on this. So help us understand, as you wrote your designer diary, about the original inspiration for Pecking Order.
Well, the original inspiration, I was walking around Portland and saw some birds, seagulls, jockeying for posts. And I began to fantasize that the birds were choosing the better posts and acquiring them based on the pecking order, because one would fly up and either be pushed off or manage to take the post they were trying to land on. And so they were shifting back and forth. And I decided to try to make a game that modeled that interpretation of things. One of the things, I don't know if I put this, I probably did put it in the designer notes. I haven't read them in a long time, but I had been thinking at the time about how Stratego, one of the games I really liked growing up, how you didn't actually need both players to show their pieces when they were revealed. And I thought it might be an interesting opportunity to make a game like Stratego, but only one person showed their piece and the other one said who won, thereby keeping some of the mystery in the game. And that's what I applied to this idea of pecking order.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting too, because I grew up playing Stratego. I loved it as a kid, and the fact that you're drawing inspiration from these old classic games and putting bits and pieces of that into more modern designs is just a really cool thing. But another thing I want to pick your brain about that the designer diary is you had a really interesting concept, which is counterintuitive to the way most people think about game design. You kind of like take something that's typically done and you completely turn it on its head. And the way you kind of wrote about this was like, you've played a number of games where you had a set of resources and you used them to bid on randomly revealed prizes, but you thought it'd be fun to reverse that formula and randomly get your resources and use them to bid on a set of always available prizes. How do these ideas come through that are just opposite or backwards or whatever you want to say, creative, that flips things on their head? And how many of these do you try before they actually work as good as this things?
I try a lot, and many don't make it past casual play. But the thing is that they're always interesting to play with. Even ideas that don't pan out, they're fun to play once or twice. And I always encourage people who are interested in this process to tweak the games they're playing. And even though they may not make the new classic variation, almost always their experience with that modification will be good for one or two plays and teach them something about game mechanics and game tinkering. And I think this switching around this paradigm that I had been exposed to a lot, fixed resources bidding on, or fixed tools bidding on randomly available goals. Switching that's something which, when you tinker with games enough, sort of becomes second nature. And so it's a really valuable tool, a lot of fun. I encourage everybody who's interested in games, game design, gameplay to try it. Tinkering is fun.
Yeah, but I mean, you're not just tinkering. You're like completely like, hey, let's take this at exactly 180 degrees of what typically works and see what happens. And I think that level of curiosity is amazing. And it's like, younger designers or less experienced designers, I think this is such a great tip, because I think I responded to your designer diary. I'm like, see, this is what happens when great designers like yourself, and Freedom and Freeze is another one that does this, where in Findorf, he flipped something on his head where people are always okay with paying the same resources and getting a better reward if you get there fast. But he flipped that over where you're like, now everyone's using different resources, but the what you're getting is the same. And people were like, why are you doing this? This is stupid. And he's like, well, no one has a problem the other way. Why? This is the same thing. It's just flipped. And it just goes to show you that when you get to the level of design where yourself and Freedom and Freeze are, these types of thought processes, I think, are counterintuitive. And I think it's just, I wanted to bring that out for other designers. I'm not a game designer. Of course, I've got a million designs floating in my head, but who has time to design games when you're covering them all day, right? So, we're here to talk about Pecking Order and the revitalization of it in Monstrolious, as I mentioned in the intro. But I thought it'd be interesting to talk a little bit about some trends we're seeing. I don't want to just call it reprints, but it's probably the quickest and easiest way to say a revitalization. In my opinion, there's been some recent good examples of what to do with the reprint. Typically, it's people that it's a loved game that's gone out of print, whatever, maybe changed publishers' hands, and it needs to be rebrought and re-entered into the industry in a different time, almost like a time warp. There's been some good examples. Like lately, Manhattan was a design from 1994. It was a Spiel des Jahres winner, and it was reprinted in 2018. And that was a great one because what they did was they refreshed the art. They put in an advanced variant that you might want to use, which I actually do like. But it looked good. It was modernized. They didn't mess with the mechanisms too much. They added an optional variant, and it went over well. It made it look nice and new, but it was still the same great game, right? Another one, Finca, 2009 Spiel des Jahres nominee. It lost to Dominion, but it was reprinted also in 2018. But what they did is they took a game that was perpetually out of print and took a $60 game, put it in a smaller box. It's now a $30 game. So now you have a game that's brought back into the market, and it's in a smaller package, a smaller footprint that's more affordable and that more people can get. And I'm like, okay, great. You brought this game back. You did some things to make it better in some ways. But then there's bad ways. in horrible ways, in my opinion and others' opinions, to do this, right? Ethnos was a game that came out from CMON in, a handful of years ago. It was critically acclaimed. I love the game. It's a sort of area control game with generic fantasy. I'm going to be putting images up here on the screen for people to see. And it went out of print for a long time. And another publisher brought it back as a different game called Archaeos Society. And they completely redesigned the game. It no longer was an area control game. It was moving up Euro tracks, which made the game incredibly boring. It took all of the teeth out of the game. And I don't typically do a lot of negative reviews. That game got a negative review for me. I'm like, why don't you just listen to what the people want? You've had 7 years of people telling you exactly what they want and what they would like different. It wasn't the gameplay. It was the art and such, right? So then this year, they brought Ethnos back as second edition. And sure, they made the art new, which is what people wanted, but they messed with the production to the point where there were playability issues. The cards no longer had text. The images were confusing. It was hard to see which faction things were from. And they fixed some things, but they broke other things. And I get, having a language independent game is better for pricing and selling around the world, but it's horrible for the players. And they made the game a step back. And the last one I want to mention is Bruges was a very popular game from Stiftenfeld. That was brought back as Hamburg. And again, they made many design changes, all of which, in my opinion, ruined the game. And I don't do a lot of negative reviews, but when people are excited about an old game and you bring it back and you drop the ball when you have all this time, I feel like publishers try to do too much. I feel like they don't listen to what the people actually want. Now, an exception to that rule is Libertalia. That was recently brought back. Stonemaier Games did a great job of changing many of the mechanisms and the abilities in the game and changing the whole tiebreaker system. And you look at and you read about it before it came, and I'm like, oh no, here we go again. Someone trying to do too much. They nailed everything they did. So there can be times where you actually do improve a game, but it's an exception, not the rule. So with that being said, I kind of want to bring us back to Pecking Order. Please let us know, like, how, in your experience, how do you go about revitalizing an old game, bringing it back? How much do you want to change? How much do you even think about changing? And how much of that is up to you versus, like, say, the publisher?
Well, there is a lot to talk about there. I want to preface this with saying that that this idea of bringing back old games is awesome. And the reason for that is because old games in general, when they reach a certain quality level, just stand up to a lifetime of replay, and there's no logical reason why they should expire. And which is like classic literature. You don't expect a great book or a great movie to go out of print and nobody ever sees it again. And when you find that's happened, you're kind of a little upset. You think it ought to be available. And it's the same thing with games. Games just stand up to the test of time in a way which movies and books often don't, because the same person can play them forever. So it's more like music. In general, I'm very much in favor of these games being brought back, because anybody in the industry knows that oftentimes they didn't, that whatever put them out of print wasn't a reflection of the game necessarily. There might have been something about it which stalled it. It didn't, but for whatever reason, maybe it didn't find its correct audience. So for me, recently, Pecking Order has been reprinted as Monstrolious, and Spynet as Shadowblades. I think Shadowblades.
I didn't realize that was reprinted. That's great.
Yeah, no, I was very, very happy with that. And both those games fall into that category where there was where the people who were doing the republishing recognized the game underneath, despite whatever problems were there with its original publishing. With Pecking Order, the game worked really well, but it was positioned as sort of a heavier game than it should have been. It came in a bigger box than it needed to. It was put in a line with some serious games, and I don't blame that on where it went, but that was seen to be one of the factors. And So when you reprint these games, and you're tasked with sort of trying to figure out how things will be different this time. Was it simply a game that ran its course but was loved and would be loved today? You don't have to do much. Was it a game that you recognize as being a good game, but for whatever reason failed to find the right audience? You might do things a little bit different. That could be on the marketing end, but it could be on the design end or the way it's presented, or any of a number of other things. So you asked about me in particular. I usually have a very close relationship with what goes on with these reprints. So with Monstrolious, it was clear that Repos wanted to do the game as it was originally was. They wanted to change the flavor. And so there was some discussion about the flavor, which they came up with and I gave feedback on. And we did talk about some variations in the rules, but none of them seemed worth putting in. They thought that it stood well on its own.
So with the Monstrolious aspect of it, like you just talked about how heavy the theme was into this game. So when they bring you these ideas on how to change it, how are you able, since that was such an experience that really breathed life into the original aspect, how hard is it for you to be like, okay, I get it. Let's try something different. That was the theme. It inspired the game, but I'm okay with going a different way. Is that hard to do?
Oh, no, it depends. It depends. Sometimes it feels very like changes to theme attack the heart of things. But I feel like the game Pecking Order stands really independent of its inspiration. So I didn't have any problem with that. And generally, I'm pretty flexible on themes. It's not that I don't care about themes. I do. I don't. But I want them to resonate with whatever the mechanics are. And Pecking Order is close enough to an abstract game. It was going to resonate with a wide range of different interpretations. With Spynet, I actually presented. They said they wanted to with Shadow Blades. They wanted to change the flavor to being instead of spies, sort of set in a modern context. They changed it to Asian warriors, Korean Asian warriors, and I actually redesigned the entire game based on that. But when we took measure of everything, we decided to go with the original mechanics. So it's very close to what the original was.
Okay. Is there still the team variant for 4, or?
There is, and that was one of the things which there were many reasons why we thought Spynet didn't reach its proper audience, and one of them was I think we emphasized the team play too much. When people saw the game, they thought that it really needed to be played with 4 because that's how it was presented. But the game was actually designed for 2. We just liked the 4-person version so much that we decided to emphasize it, and we think that limited it in some ways.
I agree. It is an excellent 2-player game. The way that you do the Winston draft, the way that you kind of like you go through the cards is so good. You know what you're giving up. You know what you're giving your opponent. Folks, if you haven't played Spynet or Shadow Blades,
Shadow Blades, yeah.
Shadow Blades, yeah, definitely another one to check out. That's in my opinion underrated, underappreciated. Now, you talk about the rules of Pecking Order. As far as I could tell, when I went through all the rules, the only difference was one of the special spots. You now flipped over the opponent's tile, as opposed to I think in the original it told you just to peek at it and then put it back face down. Is that? It seems like they just kind of took that memory element a little bit out of that.
I did not remember that the original did that differently. That was certainly always the intent that it was. So it might have been put in the original, but if somebody back in the day had said, should this be flip or peek, I would have said flip. But but maybe it just hadn't occurred to me then. I don't know.
Okay. I thought it said peek when I was looking through both rule books, but who knows? But
it might have. In general, I do try to remove memory elements when it's not the focus of the game. So
that brought up another question I had for you. I agree. I typically don't like memory elements in games, but Pecking Order is so short. It's 10, 15-minute game, right? So it doesn't bother me as much. When you place in this case now, a tile down and it flips over the other it flips over when you're basically trying to win the dessert there. When the losing player, it tells you to take them and put them in your discard pile. If it was face up, it stays face up. It was face down, it stays face down. Have you ever completely tried to remove the memory element where when something gets defeated, it doesn't actually go completely off the table in the discard pile? It just kind of slides back a slot closer to the player. So you always have perfect information of what was there at what point. That way you don't have to remember, oh, I beat the 6 over there. I know it was there, and then that allows me to do more deductive reasoning than memory elements. Did you ever think about completely removing memory from the game? Because it was something that occurred to me, and I'm like, I know it's the dumbest thing ever to suggest a mechanism to one of the greatest designers ever, but I thought I would throw that to you.
No, very, very much. That's actually the way I play. And was it in Pecking Order? Was it that way, or did you have to discover that yourself?
No, it's as far as I know, you put them the defeated ones go into your discard pile.
So I think I know that I had discussions with the publishers on this, and I think that when you began to write these rules, they just became too opaque, and they felt like if they go to the discard pile, that's what everybody does. Everybody understands that. And really, I think there should have been a variation or something there which says if you want to reduce the memory or something like that, you can slide these pieces. But I think it was a matter of trying to make the rules as concise as possible. But I totally approve of that as a way to play. That's the way I play. I find it very enjoyable to have those deductions on the table rather than to have to memorize them.
Okay. Wow. Okay. That's awesome. Yeah. So I agree. I think especially for this smaller footprint, by the way, when you said they made the box smaller, when it showed up, I was surprised at how much smaller that box was. Oh my goodness gracious. So I was curious with this reprint. Right now, Repost put it out. I had to get it from Canada because I contacted Asmodee North America, and they were not bringing it to the United States. So if you want the game, you're going to have to get it. I think if you're in North America, from Canada is the closest place to get it from. When you talk to a publisher about this, first of all, typically who starts the conversation? Is it you or the publisher? And then secondly, how much do you talk about, okay, well, which regions are you going to sell this in? And if you're not selling it in some other region that I really want to be sold in, do I have the rights to go find someone else there? Or would you like to work with a partner there? How does that aspect of the business work?
It works both ways. I have approached publishers with games in need of a reprint, and publishers have approached me with Pecking Order in particular. Repost approached me. And with Shadow Blades, I approached the publisher. As far as where it's going to be sold, I don't. There are probably designers which get involved with that. I very rarely do. The only time I can remember getting interested in that was with Half Truth, which I felt getting a localized versions in different regions would be something really good to pursue, and so I did look into that some. But usually I let the publishers manage all that.
Okay, so like in a case like this where they brought it to Canada but not in the United States, do you ever feel like saying, hey, they probably tell you why they don't bring it there, right? I guess it's a decision that they have to make, and you have to either be okay with it or not, right?
Well, they say, yeah. In fact, when you brought that up, I asked them about it, and they said that they're hopeful about getting it in the United States. They can't promise anything yet. They have to get a partner to pick it up.
Okay. Well, I hope it does. I mean, in the intro of this video, the interview that you didn't see, Richard, I did mention that I did just recently review the new version and showed it compared to the Pecking Order. So if you want to learn even more about the game, you can go back. It just launched this past week on Monday. So you can go watch that. Now, I've mentioned a couple of your games that I liked. One of them, Treasure Hunters, another undervalued, underappreciated game in the industry. Now, Are there any talks of possibly reprinting this or any of the other games that you've are in talks with that is to the point where you could actually say anything about?
I've been thinking about Treasure Hunter a bunch. I have to talk to Queen about that. There's nothing in the works right now, and I don't think there's any games being republished right now. I will say sort of a project of reprints, which is not mine, but I am the lead designer on, is reprinting Magical Athlete.
What? Are you serious? That's
Yeah.
amazing. That is the craziest, most fun convention game ever. How are you involved in this?
Well, I tried to track down the original designer because I found the game so good for kids that I wanted to know if they wanted to make a version for kids. Um, and it took me a long time, but I did track down the designer, and the designer wasn't interested in pursuing the game anymore. But a publisher picked it up, and with the designer's permission, I was put in as a lead designer in the new version. And this will actually hope be this will be a reprint that's different than the original. So hopefully it breaks your standard rule that touching the game too much hurts it. But I tried to be as respectful as I could to the original design, but there were a lot of rules things and lots of different types of racers that we had been playing with over the years that we really thought were good. And we thought like the opportunity to have different, more interesting maps was there. And so you'll get, I think we're aiming for, hopefully the fans of Magical Athlete will like what we've done, and it'll find more of an audience, because I adore that game. I am honored to be able to work on it, and it's a fun project.
So when they asked the original designer, hey, guess what? We kind of have Richard Garfield that wants to work on this. Are you okay with it? First of all, who in their right mind would say no? But second of all, what is he saying yes to? Just generally that you're working on it, or is he actually a part when you said you're making some bigger changes here? Does that designer need to be involved in that, or is he just says yes and he trusts everything with you, or are actually some of these changes run by him?
If he were interested in the changes, I would be listening and working with him, because it's his baby, and I want to do it right. As it stands right now, there's very little communication with him, and I hope he approves of what we end up doing. But yeah, it's an unusual situation. I would expect to have more of a collaboration, or one where I am answering to them rather than leading the project as heavily as I have been. And we're actually planning to do two projects. The first one will be closer to the original. Internally, we call it classic Magical Athlete, because we're trying to make it as close as possible to the original, while having different powers and different race boards, and cleaning up some of the rules. But then there's one that's a little bit more, you've got more stuff going on.
Okay. Well, other than the reprints, do you have any other non-reprints, some newer titles coming out or in the works that you want to let people know about that you can publicly talk about?
Well, I've got two digital games, if it's okay for me to mention them here on
Sure.
the analog channel. Of
course.
I'm a big fan of auto battlers. I've tried to take the mechanical essence of auto battlers and put them into into analog games, and been disappointed with all my design efforts along those lines. Although it was recently pointed out that Magical Athlete itself is very much like an auto battler, but instead, what I'm doing is taking the board game sensibility and trying to put them on these digital games. So there's Vanguard Exiles, which is on Steam in early release right now, and in that you sort of have your army as you do with most with most auto battlers. And the big change here is that there's this growing and changing and always random dungeon you're deploying your guys in, and then they wander around the dungeon and compete for victory points and gold and such. So that feels really fresh to me, and it's been a lot of fun to work on. And then the other one is Chaos Agents, and this one is it's an auto battler, but it's also where you've got a large number of people battling at the same time in one arena. And so this plays into this idea that, as I said, I really love auto battlers, but almost all of them have been concentrating entirely on 1v1, even though it seems like it would lend itself to many playing at the same time. So that's what we're doing with Chaos Agents.
Okay, and both of those when are they available now, or they're going to be soon, or?
With Vanguard Exiles, it's on Steam with in early release. So there's a long way to go, but you can play head to head. There's some solo content, and you can sort of see how the mechanics work. And there's a demo version too. I certainly, if you're not sure about auto battles in general, try the demo. And even if that's all that you do, I think you'll enjoy that. With Chaos Agents, it's available with Popularium. It's not published yet, but it's in alpha.
Okay.
And it's not too hard to get involved though. So.
Okay. Now, speaking of auto battlers, I mean, since Challengers was in the Spiel des Jahres and such, you've been seeing more and more auto battler physical board games coming out. Did you ever have a chance to play Challengers?
Oh, I did. It was, as I said, I've tried to make auto battlers myself, and they always felt, when I was working on them, they always felt like they always stalled at this point where I said, "Oh, this is kind of fun, but you know what? It would be better on computer." And if that's the case, I'm not interested in sort of pursuing it. And so Challengers got. It managed to make it so that it was worth playing on paper and didn't feel like it required a computer to play. And so I think it's a really wonderful genre, and I would love to see more games like it in paper.
Yes, I like Challengers. I've had some experience with it's not publicly known, so I can't talk too much about it, but there is a well-known designer that has been working on auto battler game around baseball, and I'm a big baseball fan, so I've been part of the development of that game, and you're right though. Auto battlers, just by the nature, tend to be like, hey, let's just make that an electronic game. But like, there's got to be some reason why it exists in the physical game. So maybe that's the challenge, right? That keeps people away from doing it.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people had my experience where they play auto battlers, are really blown away by how wonderfully they work as a hybrid digital table game. And then they try to take it and they realize that the computer's really doing some good lifting here. And so it takes some real skill, experience, some insights to be able to decouple it so it doesn't put too much burden on the player.
Okay. Last question, Richard. What's a recent game that you've played that's really stood out to you? I'm sure you play a lot of games these days, probably mostly your own, but.
Well, actually, I play very few of my own games unless they're in design. I play a lot of them in design. The reason is because when they've been published and I play them, I get in. I don't have as good a time as with somebody else's game because with somebody else's game, I'm learning interesting things and being shown their insights and their ideas. With my own games, I can only see the problems and it's too late to do anything about them. So
oh my
I've
gosh.
gotten much. But what usually when I'm convinced to play, I usually do enjoy it. But it is more stressful than I'd like. Recently, I played Zombie Kids with my 7-year-old twins, one of whom you've seen plenty of times on the camera during this talk, and this worked really well. It's getting a legacy experience, which was which worked for that age, was marvelous. So yeah, Zombie Kids was a
That's
great
great.
game.
That's fantastic. Well, Richard, I want to thank you so much for giving us so much of your time today. It was great to hear all of your insights. Please let me know next time you have something coming up. We probably should have done this about Half-Truth and about some of the Mindbug things. So we got to do better about, it's been since Keyforge, the last time we've had one of these discussions in a public forum. So next time you've got something coming down the pike, hit me up and we'll do this again.
Oh yeah, anytime, always fun.
Thanks, Richard.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this format with Richard Garfield. Again, I did an interview with him on Keyforge a few years ago. You can go back and look for that on the interviews playlist on my channel. If you like this format, let me know in the comments. Let me know who you'd like me to interview. Let me know what topics you'd like me to interview people about. And I will try to do more of these. This has been the Game Boy Geek, breaking down barriers, growing relationships with board games by helping you find that fun you love. Game Toppers upgrades every game you play, and they just launched their 4.5 Kickstarter, which will introduce the new Galactic, Mycroft, and Watson Game Toppers with interchangeable rail inlays, as well as new game mats, miniature gaming terrain packs, leg kit options, dining covers, accessories, and amazing package deals. Search for Game Toppers on Kickstarter or go to GameToppersLLC.com.